Glad to see you all here today. We are happy to welcome Brenda Parker for today's lecture, the third in our winter lecture series. Just a couple of quick announcements before we get started. First of all, we're happy to unveil our new interpretive panel on the history of the slave trade to London town. As I've mentioned in some past lecture introductions, we are now a recognized site of memory on the UNESCO Slave Route Project. All year and throughout the remaining years of London Town as a museum, we'll be commemorating the lives lost and the people carried here on the slave trade, those enslaved captives of Africa. This will help us to better tell the story of London Town, and we're happy to work with UNESCO and with the Middle Passage Marker commemorative ceremonies who have helped us to earn this designation through UNESCO. Also, we are still part of the Big Read in Anne Arundel County, focusing this year on The Big Smoke, a collection of poems about the boxer Jack Johnson. We do still have a few books up front. They are free. You'll see them on the table up there. Help yourself to one of those books and check out the Anne Arundel County Public Libraries for more events for the Big Read. Our next lecture, next Saturday, is with Janice Hayes Williams. She works at the Anne Arundel County Executive's Office, and we'll be talking today. We join many other sites in the Four Rivers Heritage area to celebrate Maryland and Maryland's history. In June, we have Uncertain Freedom, that's June 22nd. We're joined by the African American Historical Interpretive Group, the Sons and Daughters of Ham, who explore the lives of enslaved and free African Americans in Maryland as the institution of slavery collapsed in 1864. It's a very powerful program. Come on back June 22nd for Uncertain Freedom. I'm glad to see many members in our audience. If you're not yet a member, consider a membership. It gets you free admission for a full year, discounted admission to special programs, and it really does help us to teach the history that we teach here. Brenda Parker, our speaker today, I'm happy to introduce, has nearly 3 decades acting experience paired with a passion for storytelling. She's been working as a historical character interpreter for George Washington's Mount Vernon for almost 8 years. And today she'll be speaking on historical character interpretation, connecting the dots. So again, we want to join in welcoming Brenda Parker to the podium.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm so excited to see you all here. I'm really, really excited. We were probably all of us anticipating a touch of weather, and blessedly it seems to have avoided us, at least for the time being, which is good. It gives me something to do this morning, since I'm normally hanging out at Mount Vernon, not looking forward to this weekend. Some visitors in the crowds that are coming to celebrate General Washington's birthday. But as he said in the introduction, I've been working at Mount Vernon for several years now. I initially started working at Mount Vernon back in 2004. So I've been working for the Mount Vernon Ladies Association for about 15 years or so now, and was blessed enough to be able to switch over from the department which I was in, which was strangely enough food service. Yeah, and get over to historic character interpretation, which I'm sure you're probably thinking that's like the strangest league you've ever heard of before, but it works out for me. So anyway, getting to the nitty-gritty, this is what we're going to be discussing today. I'm a note taker as well. I'm that kind of a person, and there's a little opportunity for you to take notes if you'd like to, a la Brenda style. I like to use index cards. And you might find this a little helpful as I run around with index cards in my pockets all the time. So if I'm trying to learn the lyrics to a song, or whether or not I'm trying to learn my lines for a play, or whether or not I'm just thinking of thoughts for to help me out with character interpretation and things. I even have like a little ledger, a little black and white composition book that's just small enough to fit into my pocket underneath all of my petticoats. You might see Caroline pulling it out, scribbling something down. I was like, look away, you don't see me. Not period. It's so not period. So not period. Okay, guys. So character interpretation, connecting the dots, aka some assembly required. because there is a lot of assembly that is required in this. All right, here we go now. And do I push this button or the that button? It's not for this button. It's for that button. It's for this button. It's the one of the button. And of course, it's on. But yeah, Brenda is not. I'm an interpreter, so.
Try it
It's
down.
one of them.
Sometimes on the doors.
I was the school AD specialist.
Am I supposed to push the right arrow? There we go. There we go. Okie dokie pokey. All right. Yeah, that's exactly the page I needed to be. So, okay. So finding resources. Resources are basically your batteries. What you need to do. We're gonna find your resources. Do your research. Create or craft your identity or persona. I like to call them, they are people. They are persons because I actually narrate and interpret the lives of real. So my persons are actual persons. And I like to take them on personally and identify with them as like my family members, you know, grandparents and cousins and aunts and things of that nature. Set in motion or insert batteries, which are not included. Batteries are going to be money, resources, energy, or time that you're going to find. Okay, under finding resources, what is a resource? A resource is going to be a supply from which a benefit is produced. Available means or assets necessary for effective operation. I have lots of examples of different resources that I use. And because I'm doing, goodness gracious, my resources are going to be from unusual places for the most part. So, some examples of some resources that most people are accustomed to going into are going to be, of course, primary source documentations. Primary source documentations, as far as the lives of the persons that I'm interpreting right now at Mount Vernon, are really, really easy to come by in the form of ledgers and journal entries, receipts. Yes, I've seen a couple of sales receipts from persons that have come to Mount Vernon, letters. Now, secondary resource or secondary source documents are going to be the same as above to include correspondence going backwards and forwards. Again, you're just reaffirming the information that you initially received. Now, I get my most valuable or invaluable resources from very, very odd places. I read like voraciously. I'm always reading books, anything to do with the 18th century, 17th century. I even go back and try to find as many slave narratives as I possibly can. And I take into account the simple fact that a lot of these narratives are not written by the author's hand. They are written by interpretation or transcription through somebody else. So I'm telling you the story of how I came to be here, how I was born, how I was raised up, and you're writing it down in the manner in which you would write things down. So your vocabulary is going to be a little bit different than my vocabulary. Your way of explaining things or wording things is going to be much, much different than my way of explaining things or wording things. And unless the author or the subject specifically says, write it in my words, write it just like I have said it, a lot of times you're going to lose an awful lot of information just in the translation. You know that phrase, things get lost in translation. They honestly do get lost in translation. And because of this, it's also argued amongst professions and scholars, a lot of times the validity of the narratives themselves, because of the simple fact that it is somebody else transcribing these things or making these things into account. Another really odd resource that I've come across is going to be cookbooks. I know this sounds really